After many battles with the broken Demon King, he is the strongest in the world, and now, after several years, he wants a normal life. It was an academy where future heroes were trained, where he would meet a red-haired hood or hide a big secret, so she decides to help him control his power, and now he's on much better terms with Blake the next day. Later, while the class is practicing harnesses, he asks Blake to at least put away his sword because treating him less in a fight is disrespectful to an opponent. Ignoring what he says, reminding our hero that he looks different after that. All one morning the young man finally understood. But when Harness asked him excitedly what he meant by this, he could not answer. Leonard tried to help him. I don't know if she's changed, but she looks different. Leonard can't stand it, and when he tries to hit her, she tells him that she has to decide if it's flattering if she changes her Harness hairstyle. In turn she tells him that it's not. He wished she had noticed the change. His face spoke another language, Razor talking, or rather, that aside, Harness told him that while he had time to play with Leonard, they would focus on training with Sophie. The blonde cried because they made her look like a secondary character. Harness explained to the boy that Sophie was training alone and that even though she was very obedient, she was always alone. The aforementioned Sophie only follows orders, but when she sees him tell her his name, she knows he cares for her. Our main character agrees and goes with her. On the other hand, Harness Rubio, from then until the end of his life he will have to run 10 kilometers every morning. Since he couldn't beat the stupid knife, he went to introduce himself to Sophie again and told her that Harness had sent him to watch. Sophie thought he had ordered her to train, under his gaze. But Blade explains that he not only helps her, and when asked why he doesn't use guns, they work together. Sophie tells him that they only taught her how to fight with her fists. So Blake teaches her how to use a sword. Asked if it was an order, and again Blade had to answer that they were friends and that friends should not remember to help each other. And that of course it was not an order. You should not train with it, if you don't want. Sophia agreed to train together, but before they start a new campaign and the lesson ends, our hero is disappointed, and Sophie's face does not help to improve the atmosphere the next day. At first, Sophie couldn't damage the armor, so Blade said that she could channel the power as she realized that she would have a chance to split, as another extension of her body to drink into the sword. Just as she exerted force on her fists, after a day of training with her armor as if nothing had happened, Sophie finally failed with it. Blake was about to finish the training, but at this point, can the girl defeat him with this power? He wondered, as Sophie told him when he asked who she was talking about. She wants to defeat our hero Ernest. He says that maybe he is defeating him because it's not easy to level with him. Sophie says that he immobilizes him and that the move is stronger than his blade sword technique. He agrees and says that he can't move her. The girl replies that if he allowed her to move, he wouldn't have done it right away. She asks him to continue teaching her the next day. The king summons Blade. After the boy complains that he called his office in the middle of the lesson, the old man asks him how school life is going. Our hero tells him already and his friends, so everything is going well now. The king says, I answers, lucky for him as a hero, and he's been fighting non-stop since he was 3 and he doesn't even have a best friend. It's so cool. The game sarcastically apologizes for saving the world's ass while having fun, but let's put the king aside. Yamiz asks who he considers his friends. Blade says he has a few, but recently he's been spending a lot of time with Sophie. Something his goal was to be better than him, but he will never achieve it. When the old man is asked what he is talking about, he asks that he does not know about the project to create a great artificial hero. Seeing as he doesn't explain that he's a hero by nature, his powers appear out of nowhere. But this leads a group to wonder if he exists at all. It must be possible to create such a creature. Thus, if they began to experiment with people with enormous potential using ancient or long-lost knowledge, they began to artificially restore the hero's powers in a person. Not only that, but for him the original candidate clones created, to try different experiments and make different adjustments. The girl he calls friend is called Sophie, and the accent means fetus 12 in the ancient language, which means that the girl is the 12th clone of the original Sophie. They gave her for a long time. They were treated only as a woman, the subject of the experiment, and they are brutalizing his body. They ask him about the organization. The old man tells him not to worry, he already destroyed it. When the counter Sophie promises him that he will be free, but rejoice or cry. Lash asked him instead. Yes, that was the order. Blake left the place after hearing this and walked the halls. Realizing his friend's behavior, they took Sophie from ordinary life just to create a hero, and if her powers never appeared, it was his fault, had never existed. No one would have tried to replicate what she was. So in order to pay off the piper, Blade decides to make Sophie live a normal life. The problem is that he doesn't know what it is, so he decides to ask his acquaintances what it is. He was the first young doctor to go, and when he heard her question, he was proud of her and finally became interested in these matters. Sudok answered that youth means love. After that, he went to ask Leona, who gave the same answer. Then he left with these two and heard the same answer again. She then asks them to teach them what love is. Claire tells her that she needs to meet that person. She says that Blade went in harness to ask her how to set up a date, which confuses the matter again, and she replies. Couples, they spend time alone, they walk together, they go to the store while they wait for Blade to propose. He thanks him and tells him it will be a great date, which annoys Harness. When he invited the girls into the locker room, he walked in without thinking. He asked if it was an order. Blade told him no, but the most important thing was that the girl was slowly opening her heart, and that day she took a step because she accepted them did instead of a meeting. Instead of a meeting, the girls committed an act of hatred with Blade. Well, it could be from someone else. Date Jessica. Arns and Claire were ready to spy on the lovers. Jessica provided the group with bean bread. That's why he asks them not to treat him differently now. His priority is making sure Blade doesn't do anything weird. So they're almost friends since they're equals. No return to lovebirds. Sophie arrived at the same time. The girl clearly says that she does not know anything dating, but Blade asks him not to be afraid to study hard about dating and prepared the route. Today's plan is simple. They meet at 10, they say hello at 10:01, they start walking at 10:03, they walk until 10:30, then they rest until 11 and 12, have lunch at the rest of the route will tell them later. The girls realize that this animal knows nothing about dating, but that makes it more fun. Blade's plan is off to a bad start because it's already 10:04 and they still haven't moved, but the boy is about to have a crisis before Sophie took his hand and said that it's okay. They just need to start walking hand in hand. Harness didn't like it at all. The lovebirds meeting was simple, and first they walked. Then they ate ice cream. They ran and walked along the dock and almost killed their friends without realizing that there were small cars in this world. He went there too, although it wasn't a good idea because no one knows how to measure their power, and they ended up destroying the car. When the girls apologized for them, they took Sophia to drink coconuts. The goal was literally closer to was struck on their cheeks. The knife came off and almost ran away. When he asked her what happened, she said she didn't know, but her heart was very excited. There's good love even though we all already know what's going on here. Doa plus or minus a. They're surprised the pack of wolves haven't noticed them yet drinking coconuts. ADN is having internal conflicts because what the turtles are doing is rude to appease her. Looks like dirt. Jessica buys him an ice cream so they get distracted and the thugs get lost again, but the next activity they do is a bit late, but Sophie asks her not to worry. She knows it's a shortcut to solve their problems. It also involves the destruction of the town, which costs the school from the budget. His final destination was the legendary fountain. Sophie didn't understand the special aspect of it, and Blade told her that he didn't either, but it must be legendary. Sophie tells him that she is very happy to see him when they sit down. She feels that they are closer now. So if you want to know why he did all this for her, he replied because they were friends. I think they were for real, but if she tells him she will agree to be his friend, and since I heard friends don't keep secrets from each other, she has something to tell him. He is not a normal person. He is an incomplete experiment created to be an artificial hero. And although he is not perfect, he can use the hero's powers, which surprises Blade. Not because of what happened, but because of what he told him and the girl. It can change because it gives him a performance just like a legendary hero. Laws of physics. But he has no control over his powers at all. Proof of this is that when he tried to increase his body mass by 1,000, his body underwent 10,000 modifications and finally broke the floor. He can also stop time. But each hero's power can only be used for 10 seconds. By telling him his secret, the lady decides. Then so does he, and he reveals that he's a superhero, or at least they made him so called because he would no longer be able to use his powers. Curiously, Blake asked. He already knew that Sophie would say no, but he felt that there was something familiar about him, and as soon as our hero begins to apologize to her, he knows that it will not be enough and that it is normal for Blade to hate him. When asked why, tells him that the reason he was born with these cursed powers is simple because the first time he existed, Blaze spoke to a man and told him everything he felt. He never asked to be a hero, but since he was 3 years old, that's why he had to do it, because he didn't have a childhood. He had to see thousands of atrocities with thousands of animals and be close to death, so he counted them not do it, and when he didn't succeed, they blamed him for everything. Sophie comforted him and said that everything was not bad because he helped many more people. In his opinion, before entering the academy, the king gave him a tour of the kingdom. Allowed to travel, he was able to visit many cities where, speaking of the hero, he could see the face of hope and life in the people who gave hope to the world. And he should be proud of that, because Blade tells them that he just can't. Then Sophie, he's proud that he grew up to be a great artificial hero because now he can try to be as great as he is. which Blade overhears so he doesn't have to worry about his past as a hero again. Decided. Sophie respects him, decides and tells him that as friends they should have secrets too.